side that has the cross members and construction supports rather than facing out. So those two sections really deal with the new regulations on fences. We have section 898 that talks about unsafe fences, and I think that some of these fences were previously unlawful anyway. The exceptions to electrified fences are electric fences that are pet fences, or fences that are used to corral horses. And I don't know, we may have just a very few of those left in the village. I think they put like a monofilament line or something like that around the top of the fence. But we specifically prohibited barbed wire, razor, broken glass. We even, the commission thought that wrought iron fences should not be super pointed, that they should have blunt ends to avoid injuries. Then we get to, I guess, the heart of the matter with how to transition to these regulations. The Planning Commission did think about this issue quite a bit. We wanted to make clear, section 899, that any fence that was issued pursuant to a permit is lawful and can continue to be in existence as a non-conforming fence. That can be basically repaired, rebuilt, or replaced with a like fence at the same location without any limitation. So anyone who had a permit and installed a fence before the regulations can continue to have that fence. Can replace the fence, rebuild it in that area. The only requirement is that you not increase the degree of nonconformity if you repair or rebuild the fence. The next section, 8910, provides that a fence which was installed without a permit from the village, which does not conform to these new regulations, can apply for and receive a 3-year permit, but at the end of 3 years, that fence has to be moved, made lower, in some way brought into compliance with the regulations.
How many fences are not conforming?
Still unclear. David?
Yes, sir.
I have a question for you. The intention of the planning commission, if I have an 8-foot deer fence in my front yard and cut off 2 feet, is it illegal?
Yes. You also have,
That's the intention.
you also have
So
to
in
cut
answer to
down the
his question-
supporting
Wait.
posts.
Pardon me?
You also have to cut down the supporting
Yes.
posts. Yes.
To answer your question then, of course, then the deer fence would be legal.
Bruce, let me ask you a question though. If this gentleman did not get a permit, it seems like you might need to adjust the pros to recognize that. Because now, if he doesn't have a permit,
You gotta come in for one.
well, but it says here that a fence that was, does not conform to the regulation, what is without a proper permit from the village, and which does not conform.
And which does not.
Okay, but you've left the middle ground. That is, there's no permit, but it can still be, legal non-conforming.
Well,
You haven't given the process for
I
that.
think in an instance like that, because the fence would be conforming with the new ordinance, it would not be a very efficient use of resources to go tell everybody who has a complying structure, now come in, when we can't do it, we have done in the past, come in and apply for a permit for your structure because we need to show it's complying, but it's not, it's done in some instances, it's not strictly necessary. If it's complying, we wouldn't have, the only thing we could do is say, you don't have a permit, it complies, but take it down because you don't have a permit, and then almost all villages would allow someone at that instance to apply for a permit to make it lawful. So it's, as long as it can comply with the regulations, I don't really see an issue.
You're the lawyer, I'm not the lawyer, but it seemed to me the only process in this 899 by which a fence can become legal non-conforming is if it was permitted. I'm suggesting we need to adjust the code.
It is conforming though.
If he has no permit, then it,
Legal non-conforming means it doesn't apply, it's not legal with current regulations. This would be legal conforming with current regulations.
okay, I'm sorry, let me read this
Well,
sentence one more time. it says, "A fence shall be deemed legal non-conforming use if it was installed pursuant to a proper permit." Now, if this gentleman did not do that, he doesn't conform, he doesn't qualify to this paragraph.
Come in.
Maybe I'm being a nitpicker, I'm sorry if I am.
You are.
Am I, Bruce? Am I?
No.
He can come in and get a permit.
I'd be happy to look at adjusting that language
If-
further. To me, it's not
I
a,
don't know
it-
whether I got a permit or not, because I just built a house. But if the previous owner
Which-
didn't get a
Are you on
permit,
the corner?
720.
Mr., the new house that was
The new
built,
big
that
house.
had,
The reason-
Mr. Bruce was
the reason I don't like to get into this like this. is
subdivision?
because I think that you can't try and adjust, you can't try and figure out each individual circumstance in a hearing like this. I'd rather you come in later after we have an ordinance, if we have one, and then we can figure this out. It's not really fair to you and us because I don't know exactly what kind of fence you have, I don't know exactly where it is.
Question. How can we
Name and
trust
address, please.
Martin Redstein, 480? Pardon?
Mr. Holloway, that's the floor.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I
That's
didn't
all right.
realize that.
That's okay.
I just-
Henry Halders, 718 Ringland.
Sorry, what's that?
718 Ringland,
What, your name,
Hollander, Hollandeer.
first name?
Henry. This is actually a follow-up. I just want to confirm two things. One, this new proposed ordinance will allow a lot line to lot line, 6-foot, what we call a deer-foot fence. Is that correct? Lot line to lot line, 6-foot deer.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And if one has an 8-foot fence, within 3 years, one could cut it down to meet the 6-foot level and keep the fence at its present location.
Right.
At what point does one need a permit then? Do you need it prior to the 3 years? Do you need it now?
No, you need the permit.
Well, you would apply for the permit now, assuming the ordinance was passed, so that for a 3-year period of time, you could maintain it at either 8 feet or take action anytime in that 3 years to bring it
All
down
right.
to 6 feet.
So those of us who have 8-foot fences would come in the next, whatever, few weeks after the permit is, the ordinance is passed, get a permit, and within 3 years, we have an obligation to make it 6 feet or meet the other requirements. Is that correct?
If the ordinance as proposed is.
It passes, yes, that's the assumption. I have only one comment to make, and that relates to the 3-year limit. It's my understanding, at least we've had our fence up now 13-plus years, that over the time of the last 13 years that I know of, and I know it's been longer than for many others, there has been some question about what are we going to do with the deer fence? This is not a new issue. And there have been many people who have come in, talked about getting a permit, and various answers have come back from the village as a policy. You don't need a permit, or we don't have the process, or we'll give you a permit, which is why some people have permits and some don't. This has been brought up at multiple board meetings, and it seems that the policy of the village up until recently was one doesn't need a permit to put up a deer fence, or we're not going to enforce whatever was on the books up until now. Is my understanding a reasonable read of that?
I'll let Mr. Bradley answer that question.
Well, the policy was that we did not give out permits because we could not give out permits because we didn't recognize the building of deer fences by our ordinance.
When you don't recognize it, does that mean they're not permitted, or you just didn't have anything that spoke to that issue?
We just didn't, when I first was hired here, a problem came up my first couple of weeks I was here, and I was told at that time that, well, deer fences weren't under our code. There wasn't a problem with them. People had them. They were trying to protect their gardens. So we kind of turned a blind eye to them.
Okay. That actually,
Over the years, that's basically, we have brought it up before. I think we had, the last time we discussed it at a board meeting was in '03. When I went back into the minutes of the one. So it was 6 years.